You're listening to Mortgage Lending Mastery. Get the knowledge you need to advance your mortgage practice quickly and efficiently from Jen Duplessis, America's mortgage mastery mentor with over 37 years of experience and over $1 billion in lifetime fundings. Jen has been mentoring loan officers and realtors for over 15 years and speaking on stages across the globe. So settle in and get ready as Jen and her guests share their experience, passion, and strategies to help you crack the top producer code to reach new heights in your business. And now, here's your host, Jen Duplessis, Mortgage Mastery Mentor and head chick in charge of Kinetic Spark Consulting.
Hi, and welcome back to this episode of Mortgage Lending Mastery. I'm your host, Jen Duplessis. And as always, I always like to say thank you so much for spending time with us today and taking time out of your busy day to listen in on this podcast so that you can have that lending mastery in your business and your practice. And for those of you that aren't lenders and are realtors or investors, thank you for listening in. As you know, we always are doing everything and anything we can to help everyone in a variety of places in their businesses, regardless of what they're doing. So thank you so much for joining us. If you're new, thank you so much for coming in. Don't forget to subscribe to us. I'll tell you about that later on as well. Subscribe and make sure that you're not missing out on any opportunity to listen and grow your business. So today, my guest is Geoff Zimpfer, and he is the CEO and founder of, I just was looking at Disrupt or Die. He is the CEO and founder of Mortgage Marketing Institute. And he's going to talk to us today about marketing. And as we're recording this is the middle of August in 2022. As we're recording this, we're in this kind of lull right now. A lot of people are going back to school. People are trying to get their children back to school. People are, rates have gone up, and now we have everybody kind of standing back. We hope that they'll be coming down here soon, and I know that they will. I'm very astute in what's going on with all of that. But I think everyone is now just kind of frozen and going, what do I do? Do I do social media? What do I do? Do I find a new shiny object, which I always say the shiny object syndrome is SOS for help me. Do I need a new product? Do I not need a new product? Should I be talking to realtors? Should I not be? Should I tapping into my database? Should I just go on vacation and wait? Right. So Geoff, it is an absolute pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you very much. Wow, those are some great questions and considerations there. I think vacation is always an interesting one because we can often use time to get our head clear, right? Figure out kind of what our next step is. The thing though is that we don't want to wait forever, right? At some point we've got to get action mode.
No, body emotion stays in motion, right? A brain emotion stays in motion. So we don't want to take too much time off. So Geoff, tell us a little bit about you before we head into some of the thoughts that you have around what everyone should be doing right now.
Sure. Well, the quick background around me is I've been in this real estate game since 2003. Started off as a mortgage originator in Orange County, California, and originated for over 10 years and did well and really fell in love with the industry. There's this old saying, you probably know it, which is once you get in this industry, it's hard to get out. Right. And so
it's addictive.
It is. It's just, I just love all the aspects of it, right? The people and the marketing and the data and the learning and it's always shifting and changing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that forces us to have to be on our toes. Plus, ultimately, I like serving people and serving them to help them buy their house is a very fulfilling, rewarding experience. And now, I've shifted about 6 years ago to more of being a trainer, coach, right? Providing tools and resources to help agents and loan officers navigate, right, this digital shift. Hence the book you referred to a moment ago, Disrupt or Die, which is all about how to survive and thrive the digital real estate shift. So that's what I'm all about today.
Yeah. Awesome. I love it. And, so let's talk about the digital shift before we go into what we should actually be doing right now. From your perspective, because I was just asked this question on a podcast today or yesterday, I don't know, whenever I was on it, asked the question, what is the future for loan officers and real estate agents, given the fact that everything is so digital? We've talked about FinCon all the time. I hear it all the time. But my perspective is that we still need, look, I buy my airplane tickets online, but I still want an experience when I fly. And so give us a kind of your take on what's happening, and whether or not how do we make the shift? I don't think it's leave the business, you're going to be taken over. It's
Right.
going to be us.
Yeah, us versus them.
Yeah, I'm going, oh my gosh, obsolete. What is the word?
Obsolete. Yeah.
Obsolete. Thank you.
Mhm.
Gosh, I lost the word. I'm not going to be obsolete, but I do think that we need to start making the shift now. And the days of, well, I'm not on Facebook yet, or I'm not this, or I don't that, are over. You have to be taking action right now. So give us some perspective on this.
Well, I think if I were to sum it up in kind of one word, it's adaptable. And
Mhm.
I think, to use that old cliche of survival of the fittest, right? And
Mhm.
it's actually not the survival of it's not the most fit who survive. And
Mhm.
actually, if you go back to Darwin's book for a moment, he actually specifically says in there, it wasn't the strongest that survived. It was the ones that were most able to adapt to the current environment. Those are the ones who survive. And I think that's a great metaphor for us in this space, in that there are some digital, threats, if you will, if you want to use that word, or some changes coming from a digital aspect, from a consumer expectation standpoint. And so I think, to your point about, like, Facebook or not or whatever, I think the people who are struggling or up against some headwinds are the ones that haven't adapted, or are reluctant to, or fearful to make that leap, or uncertain about what direction I go. So that's the first and foremost thing, is that you've got to be adaptable and willing to change. And by the way, what I mean by that, willing to change, is you've got to be willing to learn new skills.
Yeah, I'm laughing about that because, a lot of people say you can't teach an old dog new tricks, and there's so many people, as they're, aging in this industry. And I can say it because I'm a baby boomer, but only by a month, right? If I'd been born a month later, I wouldn't be a baby boomer.
You're on the
But
cusp.
so I consider myself a baby Jexer, but I see a lot of that, where maybe this was the last hurrah for some people. For some, they've really adapted to it and they pulled up, and I've always said, if you're not ahead of your competition today, then they'll be ahead of you tomorrow. It's just the way it is. And I've always said this too: never be in someone else's wake. Right? There's turbulence in the wake. Be the leader, be the lead boat, build a fleet, but never be in someone else's wake. So I think that that's, super important. And, because of how busy everything was last year, for most people, the last thing someone wanted to do was slow down so they could speed up. They were
Right.
just speeding up.
Right.
Today, if this is the lull we're in and we're not utilizing the time that we have right now, I call it the four stages of growth, right? We have formulation, concentration, momentum, and stability. And if we just want to concentrate to get momentum and never had a formulation on what we were concentrating on, we're never going to get to stability.
Yeah.
Thoughts on that?
100% agree. I think strategy is important. I think, it's a mix of both, right? I'm always trying to put this in the context of the situation of the individual person, the listener, in different personality types, right? If you look at the disc profile or whatever, right? I mean, you could take your high Ds, they're just going to get out there and do it, and they're going to figure it out later. It's like the old saying is, like, we're building the plane while it's flying.
Right.
And some people can do that, right? Others can't. They need to see the blueprint. They need to see the things ready to go. It's already done a test. So I'm very empathetic, if you will, is a new word I'm trying to take on recently, is empathetic to the individual person's situation, because I don't think there's one prescription for everybody.
Right.
I think, depending on the situation, the person, the uniqueness, where they are in the country, there's, all the stuff, when it's in terms of, like, what kind of business do you want? What kind of clients do you want? All that's relevant to determining how you're going to show up. And I think if anything, that's the answer we're trying to get to, is how am I going to show up?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And where am I going to show up? And who are my people? Who are my ideal clients? But to your point about, we've got this lull, yes and no, right?
Right. Some people do and some people don't.
Right. Well, I mean, it's like, we've come out of 2 years of an absolute insane market, right? On the refi side, but obviously on the purchase side as well. And now, unfortunately, the media is, right, putting fear and uncertainty and doubt. And the reality is all we're doing is readjusting back to a more normalized market, not a correction, if you will, or a crash.
Right.
And I think that's unfortunately causing a lot of people to be in freeze mode, both professionals within the industry and potential prospects and buyers out there. So long-winded way to get to, what do we need to do now? We need to show up I've got something written down on this presentation I put together for this exact topic, which is in times of chaos, people seek context.
Yeah.
Right? They seek
Yeah.
context.
Be the
to help
voice of
them.
reason.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's something we've been talking about, with my coaching clients is you have to be the voice of reason. You have to be watching the right and the left and the middle and reading and creating your own thoughts around, instead of listening to one person and regurgitating what they have, is develop your own thoughts so that you can be the voice of reason for people. There's a graph that you can find online, the greed and fear index, right? The greed and fear index. And I'm looking at it all the time and going, okay, where do we stand? Are we in greed? And we're in fear? Where are we at? And these activities that everyone is doing. I was just talking to a client today and she said, yeah, I'm going into real estate offices and I'm delivering donuts. And I went, wait, what?
Wow.
Wait, what are you doing?
Yeah.
She said, yeah, I'm going in. And I go, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Yeah, it's a strategy, but it's also, well, I just want to see people face to face. I get it, but that is not the strategy you should be using. And especially you are very high level. Don't come down to that level and try to do some of the things that just aren't making any sense, And I always say it's doing activities for the sake of activities is like eating soup with a fork. And that's what I'm seeing.
Yeah, no, that's really good. Right. It's like ignorance on fire,
Yeah.
You do have to apply some intelligence,
Yeah.
and put yourself in the other person's shoes. So yeah, and my answer to context, right, in chaos is, like you said, information. How do you what you alluded to, I loved, which is have an opinion. And I think that's the overlooked opportunity, or people are fearful to have an opinion, let's say on social media. They're reluctant to put their quote opinion about what other people are saying out there. And I think what's the secret to you building your social media following? It's having an opinion, taking a position, stand, because there's 1,000 other people that are saying the same thing everyone else is saying. Why don't you take an opinion? Maybe it's an alternate opinion, but and one of the ways to do that in housing is to share housing data to create confidence, because there is credible data that you could share that will create confidence, depending on who your client is, a buyer, seller, whatever.
And depending on their DISC profile too, right? Some of them just need you to put an arm around them, so to speak. A virtual arm around them, go, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Others are like, let me give you the facts, Jack. Let's move along. Right. And so there are different personalities, and this is something that we said is you've got to have all of these tools in your toolbox, but you can't dump the toolbox out.
Yeah, that's true. You got to know the right tool for the right job, right?
You have to know the right tool for the right job. Okay. So, knowing that there's several different markets, several different, loan amounts and purchase prices, and several different hot spots in the market, tenure and all of that. What are you seeing is some of the top trends that are getting some traction, so that some people that are listening to this are saying, gosh, at least it's something for me to do. And I want to be careful that we don't go into shiny object syndrome, right? We want to say, okay, these are some things that you want to consider before you actually put your toe into the pool that we're going to talk about.
Right. And so there's various buckets, right? Or pillars or sources of quote business, right? And I always start with, and I know you're a big fan of this, is past client database, sphere of influence.
Alumni.
Yeah, I love that. And so I think most people unfortunately overlook that. We're salespeople. Well, we love the hunt or whatever, or you're like, what am I going to say? Why should I, you know what I mean? Well, yeah, you need to have something valuable to say instead of like that donut example. That's not valuable, nor is, hey, how's it going?
Or I'm checking in.
Yeah, I'm just checking in. Okay, great. Wow. So in the case of past clients, sphere of influence, and what did you call it again?
Alumni clients, because what do alumni do? They come back to you, they tout you, and they give you more money.
Exactly. Well, you need donators, right?
Right. You need donators to your cause. And so they come back. Yeah.
So a simple strategy, be it realtor or loan officer, is you could, first of all, assuming you're an empathetic person and somebody who actually cares about, right, somebody's well-being, that would be the first place to start with in terms of your state of where you're at before you make these calls. It's not about getting, it's about serving.
Yeah.
And being curious about, hey, how you doing? And what I mean is I would be calling my past clients and just going, hey, what's up, Jen? It's Geoff, small talk, blah, 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 blah. Hey, I know you've seen probably the real estate market is crazy right now. And I'm just calling some of my favorite past clients just to see if you have any questions, or if you needed some more insights on what's really happening in housing.
Yeah.
I would just be asking everybody that.
Yeah. It's interesting that you say that because, I love it. I absolutely love it. I love it. I was reflecting back as you were starting to talk and I'm going, okay, is he going to go down this line? Is that when COVID was around, some of the, and everyone would say, I need a script. I think some of the best script is the truth,
Yeah.
right? The best script is the truth. Now, the truth isn't, hi, I'm calling you because I want you to give me business. I'm not talking about that kind of script, right?
Right.
It was funny because we were talking about, hey, I was just thinking about you. I wanted to call you and I want to touch base and see how are you doing? And the tone
Right.
is different in COVID,
Right.
right?
Right.
How are you doing? How are you handling COVID? It's no different now. Hey, I was just thinking about you. I wanted to touch base with you and I wanted to give you a call and find out, how are you doing? I know that you're hearing a lot in the news. There's no difference to it. But it's a heck of a lot different than, hey, I'm just checking in, just seeing if, do you have anybody, who's, if you run across somebody, I can't even do it wrong, to be honest with you. I can't, because everyone always says, if you know anybody, well, I know lots of people, if you know anybody's looking to buy or sell, or, I'd love the job or whatever. It's not if it's who do you know? Right. Okay. So keep going. I love that. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interject, but I love that. This is timely because this is, this elevates you as a professional.
Right. Which goes into the bigger conversation about, you're opening up with asking, what should we be doing today? You should be leveling up your professionalism for sure, because people are tired of the order takers. And to your point earlier about the disruption in transaction, the cliche example people use with this digital disruption is Airbnb, Uber and Lyft, and Airbnb as well. But the point with that is it's a lot easier to disrupt a $20 cab ride than it is a $400,000 purchase, right? That's a whole different level of disruption. And that's why you are secure in your job if you're going to deliver real value. And real value for real estate agents and loan officers, it's not finding me a house and it's not quoting me rates, right?
Yeah.
It's helping guide me. It's being an advisor to make sure I'm making the right decision for me and my family, right? Yeah. And by the way, that sounds real easy coming out of my mouth, but it's a lot harder to actually apply in the real world.
Yeah.
Not
okay, so
let's
talk about that, because that is something that people talk about a lot. And they are, I've said to my clients, what do you want to accomplish by having this conversation with a real estate agent or having this conversation with a referral partner or even meeting with a client? Well, I want to give them value. Okay. What's value?
Right.
What is value to you? What's value to them? So what are some thoughts that you have about value? Because I found that most people can't even answer that question.
Who are we talking to specifically here?
Well, let's say it's a loan officer who's talking to a realtor and they want to give them value.
Sure. Yeah. So if you know anything about me, I lead with education when it comes to loan officer, real estate agent, because even ones that are seasoned, and I meet them all the time still in my local area here in Vegas. Every single week I'm in front of real estate agents and I'm meeting with them and I'm talking about their marketing strategy. And so an example of that would be, you could call right now the agents you've done business with this year, loan officer, listing side as well. And some of them you already have good relationships. Some of them it's a little, ABC level, all that stuff, right? But you could just simply, very similar to the example we just gave with the past clients, the alumni, is hey Jen, what's up? Let's say you're the listing agent. Hey Jen, what's up? Jeff, ABC Mortgage. I don't know if you remember, we closed that deal on 123 Main. Yeah. That was, Listen. Hopefully you found that to be a good experience, Jen. Yes, I did. It was fantastic. Great. One of the reasons why I'm calling is because I wanted to chat with some of the agents I didn't get a chance to earlier this year because we're so busy. And look, let's face it, the market has changed, right? Yeah. I'm really curious. Like, what are you doing differently?
Yeah.
Like, how's this affecting you? What are you going to start doing? Stop doing? I'm really curious. And ultimately, Jen, the real reason why I'm asking, because I'd love to be of service and figure out how I can help you make that shift.
Yeah. Love it.
That's it.
Yeah, that's it. And, it is funny because most people won't make phone calls because they don't, for example, well, what if, and I don't want to go down this path because I already have there's so many proprietary things that both you and I have, and we want to save this for clients too, right? I want to give as much value too, but But I have a proprietary program, for buying and listing agents to help loan officers to say, okay, well, when they say they need help, what do I help them with? I have no idea, right? And it is a tough position to be in. But I think also from the perspective of calling alumni clients, when we open up Pandora's box is saying, hey, do you have any questions about what's going on in the market? How can I give you more value? Do you have any, is there anything you're afraid of? Is there anything you're losing sleep of over at night? I think a lot of people are not prepared because now they go, well, when I ask that question, I don't know what to say. I mean, I don't understand inflation. I don't understand the Fed funds rate. I was on a coaching call with my clients not too long ago, and I said, what's the Fed funds rate? And they said 2.75, whatever it was at the time. And I'm like, no, what is the Fed funds rate? And someone else came on and they're typing in the chat, 2.5 question mark.
Right.
I said, no. Describe to me,
what is it?
What is the federal funds
mechanism?
Nobody.
Really?
Right. And the tenure is so wide. It's so wide. And, I think we've just kind of floated along. And this is the fear, I think, why people don't even begin the disruption or the phone call is because they don't know what to do on the backside.
Well, and so that's a wonderful setup. And here's my answer to that, kind of a two-part answer. One is, are you a student of the market, or is
I hope so.
skill?
Yeah. Well, I think you need both.
Well, the last 2 years, you didn't need to be a student of anything except filling out apps and sticking stuff through the funnel, right? Yep. And hopefully it closes and your offer hopefully gets accepted. Like that's what you had to do. You had to survive and hope your deal wins. Yeah. Well, we're back to a more normalized market. And so in normal markets, you need to be a student of the market. You need to be, talk about appreciation, depreciation, or deceleration. And what does that mean? Fed funds, what does that really mean, right? Yeah. That's what we said earlier about an opinion. When the media comes out and says, or someone says, hey, the Fed's just increased the interest rates, right? Here goes mortgage rates. You need to be able to understand why that's not actually 100% accurate.
Right. And exactly. Exactly. Yeah. You have to be able to speak to that. And, as we know, when they do raise the rates, and of course it depends on how much of the anticipate, there's a market shift. I'm just going to say there's a market correction that happens sometimes right before, sometimes on the day, sometimes a couple of days after. And you have to be able to explain why, when your client's calling, you're quoting a lower rate, or why you're quoting a higher rate when they heard rates went down. And, these are things that I think is just, it just concerns me. I even getting I was talking with another client today and I said, you know what effective rate is? Can you sell effective rate? No. What is it? Well, do you know what oh gosh, and now I'm having a brain fade on it. Do you know what tax bracket your client is? And do you know how to find that? No. Scary. It's really scary, to be in the situation right now where we've just been order takers. And this is why we have this podcast, because we are disrupting.
And I think that gets back to identity. And you've got to decide, who do you want to be?
Yeah.
Because there are, quote, order takers out there, call center people. And, obviously we know who they are by name, those companies, and they do a hell of a lot of business, and they serve a certain type of client out there. And you got to decide who it is. How do you want to show up and serve? Do you want to be, a professional, or do you want to be a salesperson? And I'm not, by the way, banging on salespeople, because we all have to sell and nothing happens without selling, right? I get that. But however, when you go to your financial planner or financial advisor, do you feel like they're selling you or consulting, right? When you go to your doctor, hopefully they've got a good, bedside manner and demeanor, but do you feel like they're selling you, or are they consulting, right? And I know for me, years ago, when I first started, I was working at the subprime broker shop, and it was all, subprime internet leads over the phone, all that jazz, right? And I didn't like it because I felt like I was just selling somebody versus consulting and advising. And that's the shift that I made mindset wise. So
yeah. And I think so too. By the way, I call it edu-selling. Right. I call it edu-selling, because you're doing a little bit of both on both sides. You're selling yourself, your company, the products, the pricing, the timing, trying to get them to have a call to action. But at the same time, you're educating everyone on all along the way, and making sure that you're threading all this education in there, so that when at the end of the day, the client experience is incredible. They're like, wow.
And I don't want to leave a conversation without this for the loan officers listening, because this is the easiest win you could have with real estate agents today. Once again, help people solve problems, right? And what is the biggest problem they have now in the market? It's cancellations and price reductions.
Yeah.
We now, Jen, you've been around long enough to know, right? What's
40
back
years,
in,
baby.
right? What's back in vogue? The seller buy down,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And so
Oh,
now,
yeah, we've been talking about that too.
yeah. So why don't you, with the listing agent scenario I just gave you earlier, and it's just like, hey, Jen, how's it? Are you set? What's going on? Are you seeing price reductions and cancel? Yeah, I am. Hey, would you be open to a program, right? That I've got the script right here. Doesn't require a price reduction and attracts more buyers to consider, right? Your listings versus others. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's that? Right. And here's the point though, Jen, is a lot of people are going to hear this because I've had the same
Well,
thing.
they don't know buy downs.
Well, that's the point. That's why it goes back to the thing I said earlier. Are you a student of the market or is this a new skill? And you haven't had to talk about buy downs. Well, guess what? This is a new skill you need to take on now.
Yeah. We've been talking about buy downs for about a month and a half now, in tandem with arms, right? We've been talking about arms. Now, I think that we'll see if we still have to do arms, but we've been talking about buy downs for quite a bit. And people are like, I have no idea what you're talking about. You're talking about buying down the rate? No, I'm not talking about buying the rate down. I'm talking about a subsidy. And of course, when I got in the business, rates were 18.5%. And we had, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 buy downs. Right from the builder.
Nice.
Actually, it wasn't 6. We did have 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 buy downs, and and I think that we are going to start seeing this. And I think one of the strategies that we've talked about is offering that subsidy only for offers that are accepted this week, that are seen this weekend. So after this weekend, we're not going to do it, right? Because that's the sense of urgency of getting that in there. And, and it's a strategy that we used to use is just, hey, come by and look at this house this weekend. The seller is opening up the doors to having an additional subsidy for a 2-1 buy down for any, for the offer that we accept this weekend. And amazing what's been happening because now we're starting to see more time on market. Yeah. And of course, the more time on market is really not that bad, but everyone's freaking out about it.
Well, that's a pretty good idea though. I like that for a limited time.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, like sale ends this weekend. Right.
I think the other thing that I've seen work very well for having a conversation regarding seller buy downs is a visual representation of the reduction, of comparing no price reduction versus a price reduction, and then comparing the concessions on the interest rate buy down. Yeah. Visually seeing that accelerates everything.
Right. Yeah. We used to do open houses like that all the time. Yeah. Chasing the market versus chasing the market. Yeah. I think that's great. Okay. So we want to help real estate agents get more listings, sell more homes faster because that's what they want to do. Certainly in doing that. But what about for the consumer? I'm really big on client acquisition. In fact, when I work with my clients, we talk about, yes, you may have a goal of making 500,000 or $1 million, whatever it is. But I actually think that those numbers are limiters to people. And here's why, and I'll set this up in context for you, and then you can answer the question. The reason why is if you said you wanted to close 100 transactions, we'll call it that, help 100 families, whatever you want to call it, this year, and by the end of June, you've closed 70, most people say, well, I only have 30 left. Instead of, well, if you did 70,
right. Yeah.
Why wouldn't you do 70? Well, my goal is, right? So there's a challenge to some goals, and so I like putting it in sand or in pencil. Well, put your goal in pencil because really what it's about is client acquisition. That's where we should be focusing our time every single day because instead of focusing on the result, let's focus on what is it going to take to get to the result. So when I think about consumers, what are some things that you think realtors and loan officers can be doing right now to ramp up client acquisition? I'm not talking about going out, I need new leads, need new leads, but ramping up the acquisition of having people raise their hand and say, hey, I'm interested. I may not be today, but I'm interested in growing that database. Because I get it. I call it acres of diamonds in your community, right? Your database is acres of diamonds. I get that. So we need to be working on that all the time. But in the context of getting out your binoculars and growing your database as well, what are some strategies you think that could be used today, even in social media? Or is it, not getting back out and going to networking? What is it for you in your perspective?
Yeah. all of that is on the table, right? And of course, you can't do everything all at once.
Correct.
And I had this, here's kind of a metaphor. It's like to get from where you are to where you want to be, right? If you could picture a bridge.
Mm-hmm.
And every activity or marketing initiative is one of those bridges to go from
Yeah.
point A to point B. The problem is like you said, bright, shiny object syndrome, people have too many irons in the fire,
Bridges.
too many bridges. And
Yeah.
therefore they get lost, confused, and then nothing happens. And so I have this rule, which is one bridge at a time.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
what is the one thing that will, move the needle the most for you if you did
Yeah.
it? And of course, you can choose from all these different activities, but what's the one thing that will actually move the needle the most?
Mm-hmm.
Can you implement it? How simple and quick is it to implement that, right?
Yeah.
There's things that are more shorter term, then there's things longer term in terms of the marketing and client acquisition.
Yeah.
Oh,
Beautiful.
I would say you definitely today, back to our whole concept about digital disruption, if you don't have a presence online, right? As far as the average consumer is concerned, you don't exist.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, they're judging you by your online presence. What does that mean? It means your Google business page. Do you have a Google presence that has online reviews?
Yeah.
People or other people saying about you. That's step one. Step two is whatever social media platform or platforms you choose to engage on and having content, because it's about awareness and engagement. And how am I going to engage with you today if I'm just fishing? I'm not ready to go. You know what I mean? I'm just kind of, whatever, testing the waters. How am I going to engage with you? Do I have to get on a call? That's not what I want to do yet.
Right.
So it's going to be your content. It's going to be, what are you sharing online? Back to the educational content we've been talking about here.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's very, very important. And, speaking to your bridge and stuff, so I use a gap map, right? But what we have to understand is, where are you now? And I like doing 1 to 9. I don't believe in 0 to 10. I can't figure out what 7 and 8 mean. So I do 1 to 9, 1 to 9. And sometimes you find yourself, hey, I'm at 1 with social media because I don't have a Facebook page. And I do know people that don't. I don't have a Facebook page. I'm a 1. But do you want to be a 9? And I think we put this undue pressure on ourselves that says, well, because I'm a 1 and I need to be a 9, I'll just not do it. Right. And that's not good. And that's really what you're talking about here, is you've got to take some kind of action and put some kind of timeline on this. It says, look, I know I'm a 1, but I want to be a 3, and I'm going to be a 3 by the end of the year. And then when I'm a 3, maybe I want to move to a 7, and maybe I'd want to stop there and hire a team to take me to 9. And so I think it's important to assess where you are and in one place versus another in a bridge, but where that place is and where you actually want to go. Because in one particular area, it may be a multitude of singular bridges that take you in that same work, right? In social media or in relationships. And, if you want to take action fast, you're going to have to do either, like I said, the formulation to take the first step, or say, you know what, I'm doing pretty good on this. I love that you said start, stop, right? I always do start, stop, keep, improve. And so, if I'm doing okay, but I need to ramp it up, that might be the fastest path.
Yeah. What's already working, and just, what can you just put gas on the fire and build momentum with? Yeah. And it's funny because I'm in my head, unfortunately, I've got this running response, which is, this whole pressure to be everywhere on social media. And I know Gary Vaynerchuk, I just saw him a few weeks ago at a conference, and, he was doing his usual thing about put out 14 pieces of content a day and all this kind of stuff on every platform. And, I don't disagree with what he's saying. I'm just saying, I don't think it's really applicable for the everyday person.
I don't think it's feasible. Yeah,
exactly.
I don't think it's feasible. Yeah. And because I've heard Gary speak about that a lot. And I think it's, in the eye of the beholder. If you feel like it's not being authentic, then you're not going to do it. You're just not going to do it. So, make sure that it's very authentic. So I have 2 more questions for you. One is, what do you think? Let's talk about the difference between webinars and in person now, because we've already made the shift. I can tell you, I'm traveling like crazy. We're at everything live, everything's live. But I do think that we shouldn't leave webinars behind. But what is your take on where you're at with that right now in today's economy?
Well, I'm going to separate the audiences, right? If I'm a loan officer and I want to attract real estate agents, where does webinars or Zooms and all that stuff have a place? I think it does. I think it's, it's top of funnel activity. Obviously during COVID, for all my clients who were teaching classes in person previously, they all switched to Zoom. Some thought that would stick forever and that's all people would do. Clearly are experiencing that that's not the case. We love human interaction. We crave that.
Yeah.
However, there's the appropriate application for virtual, right? It might not be as lengthy. Maybe it's not an hour. Maybe it's 30 minutes. Maybe it's, I think, all depends on the situation. They can be great for buyer pre-approval consults, right? Getting acquainted, getting to meet these people. So that's where I think virtual comes in. Also, when it comes to loan officers reaching first-time home buyers, I am seeing more loan officers do first-time home buyer webinars.
Yeah.
And I am seeing people get results from that. I know of one of my clients in particular got 2 loans from that.
Yeah.
Closed deal.
Well, and I keep pushing that, especially, so, I've encouraging my clients to create groups, Facebook groups. And what my group, when I was a loan officer, we had the Kearney Home Buyer Club, right? That was the name of it, the Kearney Home Buyer Club. And we just kind of put all of our prospects in there. And we just constantly put out information to help them prepare, regardless of where they were in the process. And then would have, a weekly quick Q&A, and then would have a monthly session on a topic. And it was just great. And that was, 7 years ago when we were doing that. So it's what's old is new again.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's about building your network and your sphere of influence, right? And it's about attention. That's the game today. Attention, engagement. Are you building that trust and, connection with people so that when they are ready, they can choose you? And there's multiple mediums to do that.
Yeah. So the answer is both, right? Just
for sure.
Whatever works. Use everything.
The online to drive the offline.
Yeah. Yeah. That's exactly it. That's exactly it. I love that. Okay. So my last question that I have for you is, and I will talk to you about your program as well. We'll talk a little bit about that. But the last question I have for you is what, I'm trying to formulate this question. And you can answer for loan officers and or realtors if you feel there's a difference for it. But what should you not be doing? And I don't want you to answer it in the context of sitting back and waiting for the phone to ring. Okay. What of what you're doing should you not be doing?
Stop selling, start helping.
Yeah.
Is that cliche or cheesy? But
no.
I mean, our job is not to, even though, listen, I'm a sales guy, I love sales, but there's an art and a science to it. And our job is not to per se convince and convert. It's to be the guide, right? For their journey, especially in this situation we're in right now, this market, this uncertainty. If you just show up, blowing and going and like doing all your tie downs and your ABC closing and all that kind of jazz, you're going to turn people off from the get-go. People want a consultant. They want a competent advisor, right? Not an order taker.
Yeah. And I think that's where you have the longevity in this industry, is that, and those that don't want to, or are not willing to learn or aren't willing to hone in on those skills will be leaving our industry, as it's happened in several refinance booms, right? And purchase market booms. Unfortunately, they'll be leaving. Yeah. No, I love that. Stop selling, start helping. It's definitely up the line, because in this podcast, if you look at the album cover, it says, stop talking, take action, get results. So yeah, it's the same thing. Stop talking about it. Go do it, take the action to get the results. So, all right, as we finish up our time, tell us a little bit about marketing, Mortgage Marketing Pro. Tell us a little bit about what this program is, who needs it, who's it for, and who's it not for?
Great question. So what Mortgage Marketing Pro is it's really built for those loan officers. My main focus is helping them succeed in attracting the attention, engagement, and conversion of real estate agents. By conversion, I mean, right, conversations that lead to referrals.
Yeah.
And of course, there's 100 different ways to do that. We all know that, from cold calling to you name it, whatever. I've decided a long time ago how I built my career was through education and was through leading with educational content and classes. Back when I started, we didn't have social media. So all I could do was classes, right? Face-to-face and in person. And what's funny is, like you said, what's old is new again. Like, what's never going to go out of style is the human connection. Like, if you could just remember that the most human company wins, and how do you be the most human, right? You have real meaningful connections with people, and you make a difference. And one of the best ways to make a difference, if you're a loan officer and with real estate agents, is, as I said throughout this whole conversation, is help them solve problems. Yeah. And so if you're looking to attract the engagement and attention of real estate agents, you could cold call. Hi, it's Monday. Jen, how are you? Blah, 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 right? All that kind of stuff. Nobody really answers their phone anymore, all that. Yeah. But believe in attracting agents to me and building an educational platform. So what we do is we have like this complete, turnkey content platform of ready to go, downloadable, shareable, instant plug and play agent classes.
PowerPoints and stuff. Yeah. Yeah.
Soup to nut. We give them everything, the PowerPoints, the speaker notes, the handouts. We give them the landing pages. It's an event management registration system. So you don't need Eventbrite. You don't need Zoom unless you want to host a video thing on Zoom. Clearly use Zoom, but we give you the emails, the SMS messaging, the flyers, all branded personally to you. So, I mean, the success stories are off the charts. Just the other day, I was talking to one of our members and he said for every class that he does, he pulls $1 million worth of originations out of every class.
I would agree with that because that was the path that I took. Everything was about being the that's why I call it edu selling. Being the educator, creating CE courses up the yang and non-CE courses,
Right.
every week I was having 2 or 3 classes in the office. I was presenting at some place. I was speaking at the Association of Realtors. That's how I grew. And from that, and I love the one-to-many approach. And that's one of the things I want people to hear is cold calling is one-to-one. This is one-to-many. And what's great about one-to-many, when I was talking about client acquisition, is that you get in front of more people faster and you get your results faster. And from that, you're able to pick from the litter. Someone who's sitting in the back of the room and being a naysayer, not paying attention and doing other things, you don't have to work with them. But the one who's engaged and interested, the one who comes up afterwards and says, hey, I wonder if you can help me refinance my own home. Right. That's when you've hit the top. Yep. And, and if you have a team, you just give them the other people that didn't resonate with you or that you don't have time to go to, and you help your team succeed.
Love that. Love that.
Well. And I love that you're doing this. And I think it's really easy. I get asked the question all the time. Do you have a PowerPoint? Do you have a PowerPoint? And I've got over 100 of them. Yes, I do have PowerPoints, but I love that you're, this is already done for you. This is key that people understand this is done for you. So I absolutely love it. So what is the best way for someone to get in touch with you if they want? And obviously we'll have the links for Mortgage Marketing Pro and for your book as well, Disrupt or Die. But what is the best way for someone to reach out to you if they have interest in making sure that they can get access to this program?
Well, in first place, I'm going to suggest if you've liked what you've heard so far, and I appreciate the opportunity, Jen, is as I'm sure some of the listeners know, I have a podcast as well. If you haven't checked it out, it's Mortgage Marketing Radio. So you can simply go there to check that out. That's probably the easiest way to get to me, Mortgage Marketing Radio.
I've been on it.
That's right. You were on it. Feels like a long time ago, man. Gosh, COVID time distortion, right?
Yeah. Well, this was before COVID, Geoff, when we did it. It was way before.
Seemed even longer ago.
Lifetime.
So yeah, Mortgage Marketing Radio is probably the best place. And then you can go to mortgagemarketing.pro if you want to learn more about the classes. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Any parting thoughts you want to give us? A quote, a mantra, one quick tip. What do you want to give us?
Yeah. So my family and I've got 2 teenage boys. One's 20, one's 18. And, one's already in college, one's heading off to college. And so, dinner time is like precious time. Right. And so we have this little stack of cards, this card game, which is, I forget what it's called, family cards or whatever, but there's different topics. And, what we try and do at most times, if we sit down 3 nights a week for dinner, we're like doing well,
Yeah.
And so what we do is each person goes around the table and grabs a card. Right. And one of the questions the other night was, what would you tell your younger self? Right. Looking back now. And the question came up to me and the answer to my boys was, I would tell my younger self that you are enough.
Yeah.
You are enough. You have everything you need, right, to be that person you want to be. And that's the message I want to give to everybody here today is you think you're missing or lacking something, maybe some skills or whatever, but you as a person, as an individual, you don't need permission. You don't need the green light. You have enough within you. So give yourself permission.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. And it's so perfect for this particular market right now in this time is that, the feeling of being defeated or the feeling of, maybe I'm not good enough. This is why my book is called Tell Me I Can and my show is called Tell Me I Can, because sometimes we're the ones who tell ourselves we can't, and so when someone tells you you can't, say, don't tell me I can't. I know I'm enough and I've got this. I love it. I love it. I love your story. Geoff, thank you so much for being on the show again. This is the second time you've been on Mortgage Lending Mastery. I really appreciate it. I love bringing people back, kind of find out what's transpired, what's going on now. So I really appreciate you taking the time. And for those of you that are listening, I just want to say, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast to make sure that you get all of the updates. Please take a minute and write a great 5-star review and give us some great comments about what you heard from Geoff and what you learned from Geoff. And make sure that you click on the link mortgagemarketing.pro. We'll have that in the show notes, and find out more about what you can do to create a different avenue, perhaps for yourself, in being able to do more client acquisition and more real estate agent, partnerships. We want more real estate agent partnerships. And with that, we will sign off with Mortgage Lending Mastery. Thank you so much again, Geoff, for joining us today.
My pleasure.
Thanks for listening to Mortgage Lending Mastery. Be sure to subscribe to hear more sales tips, ideas, strategies, and tactics to help you with your personal and professional growth to multiply your results in record time. And if you like what we're doing, don't forget to give us a rating and review so we can continue to bring you the best content possible. Wanting more beyond the podcast? Join our Mortgage Lending Mastery membership community, where you will find extended interviews with our favorite guests, weekly training, tips, and insider secrets, fireside chats with Jen, free content, meet, share, and collaborate with other members, and so much more. Click the link in the show notes to learn more about this exclusive content. Mortgage Lending Mastery is an Industry Syndicate charter podcast. Industry Syndicate is the first podcast network specifically for the mortgage and real estate industries. Get the Industry Syndicate app in the App Store or Google Play today.